Hello, everybody, and welcome to this this afternoon from South Africa. My name is Colleen Davis, and I will be speaking to you about the exciting things that are happening in change management and in leadership development. I'm not going to even try and say that I am a change management expert, because the truth is I'm not. I'm an executive coach, and I work with leaders who deal with change. Now, the thing is that change is around us all the time, and it happens, and it's happening faster and faster. So let's get on with it. Let's start this. It's lovely to have everyone join me. I just want to, Carla, thank you. I was actually going to ask, will everybody just put down where they're from? So you know I'm from Johannesburg, South Africa. Where are you, where are you listening from? I see Belgium, London, Luxembourg. Dallas, Texas, wow, Spain, Canada, USA. We're such a global community, and that is exciting. And if you look at everything that has happened in this conference, you will see that it's about the future of organizational development. It's the future of organizational and change management. And everyone is following the same thing, and that is about the human factor. And so I'm going to take you on a journey. It's a very short. It'll be it's only half an hour, and then I'm going to have time for questions and answers. I've muted everybody, and then I will unmute you. And you can ask me questions later, but I will also be asking you to comment as well, so that we can go together on this journey. I think that if we look at the world around us, we can actually see how much being human is now the currency that is important. Whereas if you looked at a few years ago, a decade ago, many decades ago, it was more the organization. It was about, it wasn't the collective, it was the individual. And that has brought us to a place of crisis. So I'd like you to everyone just take a deep breath. Let's let go of all the crises that is happening in the world right now, and let's see where we go on. So I'm going to share my screen with you and start recording. There you go. All right, can everybody see that? Unfortunately, when I'm showing the screen, I won't be able to see your comments. So what I will do is I will stop sharing. If I ask you every now and then, I will see what you have said, but I will also ask you to contribute. So thank you very much. It's important, as I said, that we look at what happened in the 20th century. In the 20th century, there was a complete social shift. And leadership, for example, was very militaristic. We even use the language still today. Organizations were then seen as mechanistic. They were seen as mechanized, as machines that you put an input, there's a throughput, there's an output. Everyone worked within their role. You were given a role and you had to work within that, and you had certain outcomes you had to give. The problem is that we are not like that. I am not like that. I'm sure you are not like that. We don't we don't fit into a box. We're very complex. And what has happened is that we've tried in psychology, in change management, models and frameworks, we've tried to come up with something that will help us deal with change. The truth is that change is part of life. So I want to just work with you today to reach a point of going, it's okay. It's about life. Life is about change, and to give you a little bit of hope. Right, so let's move forward. For me, why is change management important for me? Why is it exciting for me? Why did I want to talk to you about it? Because although I have a background in healthcare, in learning and development, and as I said, executive coaching, and I've worked with leaders within change, and I've also seen how change has not worked, and yet how much it has to happen. Organizations that are not able to change and adapt are not going to be here in 5 years' time. And we have to adapt very quickly. And I love that. I love the whole idea about that. So that's why I wanted to share my thoughts and views with you. Why is there a ship on my screen? Well, for me, change management at the moment in the 21st century is like a ship that is on the sea, that is going to a new port that hasn't been there before. And while you are on your way to get to that port, you have to change everything on the ship. While you are facing storms, while you are facing different parts of the sea, and you still got to navigate it and change everyone to go with you and not jump ship halfway through to that new port. I'm not sure if that resonates with you, but that's how I see it. I want to ask you, I'm going to stop sharing for a moment, and I just want to ask you to do a little exercise with me. I would like you to remember that time that you were excited about a change management process or project. It could have been really small, it could have been in your community, or it could have been huge in an organization across geographies. Do you have that? Can you remember that? Can you remember that excitement? Can you remember thinking, what were your thoughts? What were you wanting to achieve? Right now, I want to ask you the results of that. Was it short term? Was it long term? Was the result what you expected? And I'd like you to put in the comments, as I said, I'm going to stop sharing for a moment so I can see the comments. What was your emotion when it didn't go well? McKinsey and Deloitte have all written lots of different things about how few change management processes and projects actually reach the intended outcome. So I'm going to stop for a short moment and I ask you to just type in what you found. Yeah, frustration, disappointment, exasperation, guilt, shame. It's very discouraging. It's discouraging because you knew what the outcome could have been. And what happens is that just as organizations are complex, as you know, and we as people are complex, so not one formula can work, not one framework can work. That's why I want to challenge you, challenge your thought, challenge your mind, and give you hope that perhaps if we can integrate a whole lot of different things, theories, models, we can get a lot more out of people. Because we, thanks Carla, I mean, we understand the importance of the change, but unless we can communicate it in a way that somebody is able to hold it and own it, then it's not going to happen. And that's the problem with a mechanized worldview. Besides the fact that a mechanized worldview is reductionist and it's resource hungry and it doesn't regenerate, it doesn't give stewardship. What it also does is it brings down a person into a gear, a lever, something to move, something to change. And that is the difficulty that we find, which is the exciting thing about 21st century leadership and 21st century change management. So, you ready? Shall we continue? Right. All right. Just move here. One of the biggest things that has completely, radically changed and shifted all of us is COVID-19. I want you to think back to where you were in January, February 2020. What was it that you were excited about? What was it that you were planning? Chances are you were looking forward to a new house, a new car, a new career, a new job. How do I find myself further than where I am? How do I get more money? And one of the biggest shifts that we have seen with COVID-19 is suddenly we go, family is important. I am important. I am more than the sum total of my job. I'm a lot more, and I am special and unique, and I have a purpose in life. I don't want my life to just disappear right now. A lot of people have lost jobs. A lot of people have lost loved ones, but also they have found a lot of opportunity. Now, what has happened is there's also been an increase in burnout, because anytime there is a huge disruption like COVID-19, what happens is we go into anxiety mode. We go into a cortisol flood within our brain that has a physiological effect that keeps going and keeps giving in a not great way. In South Africa, we have been locked down, I think it's 300 and something days already. We went from a level 5 lockdown to a level 1 lockdown, and we are back at a level 3 lockdown. Many people have affectionately called our president Malome, which is a word that means uncle. And in Africa, when you have a decision that has to be made, it's made with the collective. And what happens is that we called it the family meeting, because in Africa, the uncle calls the family meeting and the elders decide what is going to happen and let the rest of the family know the course of action that's going to happen. Now, why am I telling you this? I'm telling you this because very often in this world, we have gone, as I said, a militaristic way of leadership. But we are moving towards 21st century leadership, which is more feminine. And the more feminine traits, so-called, of compassion, of empathy, of listening, of vulnerability, and being authentic. Those are very difficult in a space that is all about me, all about my way forward, very me-centric. It's difficult to then bring the collective along. So let me just, I apologize, my slides seem to move this. There you go. If you look at these two pictures, last weekend, we're in summer here, and last weekend I had the privilege of going to the bush. Many of you, you would understand it as going on safari. And I went to the Kruger Park, and there I saw leopard. The leopard is beautiful. It is very independent and solitary. And I think it represents really well the strengths of the 20th century, the strengths that were seen as important, of you being able to make your own way. It was on your own strength. If you were burnt out or you needed help, it was seen as a weakness. The thing with a leopard is that they're very strong and everyone is afraid of them. They can be in the long grass right next to you and you wouldn't even know it, which makes them such fantastic hunters. They rely on stealth. The problem is they're vulnerable once they have had their kill, which is why they drag it up a tree. Lions and lionesses, on the other hand, they hunt in a pride. The lionesses go out and hunt. The lion just lies under the tree because he conserves his power for if anyone attacks, he's there as their protector. And the thing with the lionesses is that they hunt in a funnel, almost like a funnel. And the front lionesses will flush the impala or the deer back to the others that are hiding. And by hunting together, they get their food. And the other animals will scavenge, but only later, after they have all eaten their fill. I think it's important for us to look at where we've come from as human beings. We are not bionic. We are unique. We are very complex. We are neurological, biological, physiological, chemical, and that affects our behavior. We also remember through our emotions. We remember through our memories attached through our sensory organs, through smell, through how we felt. If you have a happy emotion, research has shown that you remember things more, and that is a good thing. How did we survive so many thousands of years? Because of the collective, not because of being solitary. So I just thought I would give that to you as an example. Quite a few of the later modern change management models and frameworks have realized how important the human element, the human factor in change management was. ProSci, for example, has their ADKAR model, which shows that you have to create this awareness, this desire for the change, why the change should happen. What knowledge do I need for this change? What ability do I have? What are the skills that I need? And to actually then at the end of it, make sure that I can continue on with this change. So you've got to reinforce it, keep reinforcing it all the time. Also, Kotter, he was slightly earlier with his John Kotter's Accelerate model, where he looked at, again, recognizing the human element is the key to change management. So creating that urgency, forming those powerful coalitions, creating that vision for change, communicating that vision, inspiring those quick wins, making us feel good about ourselves, building on the change and making it stick. He also, later on, talked about a dual system. Now, the dual system, because he recognized that any change management system, to begin with, it's amazing. But then as the months and years go by, the organization shifts back into what it knows. It shifts back into what is comfortable. It shifts back into a hierarchical, bureaucratic system where or organization which has got silos that have thick walls. And when I think of a silo, I don't think of a silo. I think of these castles with these thick walls, with these huge boulders, and like you have in Europe, because it's difficult to get across them. So what I am saying to you is that although these are correct, and they have been scientifically researched and they're evidence-based, I want to say that we have to go further. We need to start going a little bit more than that. And what I mean by that is we have to be aware of what happens in the middle of the organization, what happens in the supervisory level, the lower management level, because that is where sabotage happens. That is where people have created their own little kingdoms. That is where the human need for control, and power, is quite big, strict, relevant there. And often what happens with the gatekeepers is they look like they're really productive. And if you look in a hierarchical model and you look from the top down, it looks like they are able to build their teams run, and everyone leaves them alone. If you look from the bottom up, chances are their team is stressed out, they have a high turnover, they have all the elements of emotional abuse. What gatekeepers, the reason I use a spider is because they spin webs. They spin webs around people. So although you, the practitioner, have created this beautiful, amazing, exciting project process, designed it well, you've got the top management, the executives on board, you've got HR on board, it's filtering down, but it never reaches the ground. And that is one of the reasons I am excited and passionate about organizational design and change management, is because I experienced that I was in an organization that was, it's international, and it went through a 10-year process of change, and the change was good. Change of culture, change of values, bringing it forward towards the 21st century, a shift of technology. And the problem is that at a certain level where I was, there were a lot of gatekeepers. And it was so disappointing because the people who were honoring the change were finding themselves being cut out, finding themselves being sabotaged, finding themselves not being part of the team. If you offer someone who's creative and innovative an opportunity, they're going to be creative and innovative. But it would be, people would say, no, that's not what they meant. That's not what they meant. You've got to stay in your box. 21st century, we need people outside of their boxes. The world is shifting so quickly. If we have organizations that are, I'm going to use the word stodgy, they're not going to be able to shift and change as they need. So what can we do about it? And that is what I'm going to be talking to you in the next 10 minutes quickly. Judith Glaser wrote a book called Conversational Intelligence. I'm not sure if you are aware of her work, but she has brought this amazing view of conversation in a way that is, it makes so much sense. Because as human beings, because we are neurological, and only in the last 2 decades have we really learned a lot about what that means. What has happened is that we have something called empathetic pathways. So I can feel when I'm coaching, even via Zoom, I can say to my clients, you know, I'm getting this pit of anxiety and I'm not feeling anxious. I wonder if that's, and they say, yes, that's what I'm feeling. And it's incredible for me that it can happen over a digital platform like this. But have you ever walked into a room and you just feel the fear or you feel the anger? And sometimes what happens with a mob mentality is that you accept that as your own emotion when it never was your emotion. And that's one of the key things of walking into a room like that and actually choosing and saying, that is not my emotion. But anyway, that's beside the point. Communication is so vitally important because it happens on so many levels. It's coding. And if you don't decode what is being said the right way and get the right intention, you're going to cause misinformation. The bottom line, what Judith Glaser's work basically said is that storytelling is better than logic, and everything is underpinned by trust. If I don't trust you, I don't care what you say. I don't care what you might be telling the best truth, but I don't trust that truth because I don't trust you, because you're not connected to me. And that's why connection and network is really important right now. We've seen that play out in the political space in America, where half the population doesn't trust the other population, and each one believes that what they think is absolutely right, and the others are completely wrong and deceived, which makes it very difficult to find a common ground. Now, if that happens in an organization and you have gatekeepers, you're in trouble. So what Judith Glaser was talking about is that if you've got distrust, you stay in that cortisol soup where it's called an amygdala hijack. What that means is you're stuck like a deer in the headlights. You're stuck in fight, flight, please and appease. Please and appease. And you cannot hear what a person is saying. You cannot strategically think. You cannot be productive. You cannot think critically. You cannot think often if you are in that fear space. On the other hand, if I can trust, I have oxytocin. Oxytocin is a bonding hormone, or bonding chemical. So what it does is it allows us to think. It allows us to critically, independently think, which allows us to then move forward and work together, which is a good thing. This is why Dr. Kim Hyers from the Nightingale firm and myself, we came up with something called the human-based leader model. We realized through our coaching experience, especially in the healthcare industry, that so many leaders have imposter syndrome. And if you have an imposter syndrome, you believe that you're just pretending and someone's going to catch you out, and you have all of this anxiety. And what we found is that if you could develop the leader, and I'm talking also the middle management and supervisory level, of who are they? What do they believe? Why do they think the way they do? What triggers them? Why does it trigger them? What is the change? And in a change management setting, what is the change doing? Why do they feel, why are they feeling so anxious? Why are they resistant? Then once they're able to do that, they can then build relationship with others. They are able to then see somebody else as a unique human being. I mean, if you think about it, those of you who know the Enneagram, I mean, there's 9 different personalities plus subtypes, or the wingmen, and each one of those is normal. If we look at that and we look at neuroscience, why on earth do we believe that human beings can just be seen as a cog, right? Once you're able to do that, once you're able to then build your team, because you're not going to be defensive, you're not going to be aggressive, and you're going to be able to meet your team member where they are at. You're going to be able to engage them. You're going to be able to see them not as a threat, but as a part of your collective that you need to move forward. From this, you are then able to deal with the diversity of the global geographies, of the global community. Being able to position yourself in a way that I know who I am, I know the identity of my team and my organization, and from there I can deal with people who have different truths, and it's okay, and we can now leverage that, we can contribute, we can work, collaborate, and work together. So I'd be interested to know what you think of that. I'm going to stop sharing for just a moment, and I'd like you to just think of yourself as a human. I'd like you to consider, what are your beliefs? Are you the same as what people think of you? Are you a lot more than that? And how does the you that is connected to the community, how does that affect who you are? I'm just going to stop sharing. I'm going to look at, thank you very much for your lovely comments. Yeah, we talk about the ego. Let me just see. I see quite a lot of people are having conversations there. I'm going to actually leave that right now, because I'm going to continue so that we can finish in time, and then I'll open up the floor, if that's okay with you. I think you are doing really well as a group, as a collective, and I appreciate that. Right. One of the best ways of describing the living system, well, there's 2 ways that I've heard, was Mark Kahn from Investec Banking. He's the global HR, I think. And he explains it as it is a garden. The gardener might plant the seeds, but what he does is he creates the environment for the different plants to grow. If he does nothing, the plants are going to grow on their own. Maybe some will die if they're not watered, but they're going to do what they were created to do. at some point, it's important to take your shears out and to cut and prune. But you are creating the environment for something to thrive. You might transplant things, but it is not the gardener who grows the plant. The plant grows the plant. Now, why am I talking about living systems? I'm talking about living systems because that is the key of 21st century success for change management, for thriving organizations moving forward. One of the things I saw in the comments about COVID-19, one of the biggest changes with COVID-19 is that we now have a yearning for purpose, a yearning for things that matter. We have a low tolerance for things that are superficial. You saw that in the space of YouTube bloggers, where people who continued with their automated blogging lost people, lost followers. Where other people who at the time of crisis and COVID were authentic with their messages, authentic with who they were, then people responded to them. Another great way of looking at a living system is that it's got little parts. If you look at the human body, you've got lots of cells. The cells make up the organs make up the systems, which make up you. You who are sitting there are a thinking being. You feel, you have a soul, you have a spiritual side, you've got a curious side, a creative side. But if those little cells in your body were not working, were not regenerating, were not functioning in the way they were supposed to function, you would have a problem. So living systems, one of the biggest things with them, which I like, is that they say that you don't have to be the same. Your strength is in your diversity. You can't have 3 circulatory systems, cardiac systems. You can't have 4 stomachs and no heart. Each one of them is relevant and important, and your body conducts it. It's more of a cultivator of change. And if you don't even think about it, it still happens in the background. You still have to have, if you look at the body, you don't tell yourself to breathe. It happens automatically. But there are certain triggers within your body that if you're not getting enough oxygen, you have to breathe even faster. If we can look at that and look at organizations that are living systems that are influenced by changes inside as well as changes outside, externally, and they have to adapt very quickly. If you are in an autocratic, bureaucratic, hierarchical organization, you're not able to change. Everyone is going to wait for someone to tell them what to do. And that's the problem with the mechanized worldview. It produces, you must just do it. That's your purpose. It's control. Whereas a living system is about serving, it's about adapting, it's about learning. And I hope if you haven't looked at this or you haven't heard of this, please look at it and see it and research it. I really enjoy Michelle Holliday's Age of Thrivability. She takes the living system theory and she has adapted it in a way that makes perfect sense. And what she has said is that people are yearning for purpose, yearning for being part of something bigger than themselves, yearning for what I'm doing makes a difference to others and that I'm able to do it. And as I've talked before, it's about cultivation, it's about stewardship. 20 years ago, not many leaders had stewardship as a competency. Now it is really important. And what does that mean? And that's what I want to leave with you as well today is change is, as I said right in the beginning, it's part of the nature of life. You have different seasons in your life. Why are we trying to create something that we have created that's mechanized, when if we can just tap into the flow that is already there, we can create a flowing organization that is able to change, adapt quickly, that is able to have, ensure compassion, empathy, vulnerability, people being authentic with each other, looking at the collective, which means that we collectively work towards the same goal with the same vision. But it's not something you've imposed on me. It's something that we have collectively move forward with. And I know some people are going to say, yeah, that's pie in the sky. Have you ever actually done change management? Do you actually know some of the negative people around? Yes, I do. Yes, I have worked with negativity and I have been blocked quite a few times. But when you are able to, when a system is a living system, the people who are not able to adapt within it are going to find another pathway. If you look, I just mentioned about Mark Kahn, look at Investec. They are innovative. They continue to innovate. They choose who they bring on board. But that's another conversation. And I'm sure other people in their talks will be talking about that. But this is why when you do change management, I want you to consider not just having HR doing coaching, because how do they know how to coach properly? And what is coaching? Coaching is creating self-awareness. It's creating a safe environment where together the coach and the leader or the person being coached mutually agree on certain outcomes. It's a safe place for people to just open up and be vulnerable, but also to re-look at the way they look at the world. Try new things, adapt, try new models of being. And I know that many organizations say, well, the manager can do it, the leader can do it, but who's taught them how to do it? And what if they're a toxic leader who now is going, okay, I've just disciplined you. Now I need to, let's sit down and have our coaching session. So what do you want to do? Where do you want to go? And so executive coaching often happens at the top executive level. But what about those gatekeepers? What about that middle management and that supervisory level? I think it's important for us to also look at and say, it's not about how do we change the system. How do we work within the system to work with its own intrinsic ability to change? Do you see the difference? One is I come in and I tell you. The other one is I find where your strengths are and I use them. So I'm hoping that I have been able to give you a little bit of hope for the future, that the 21st century is exciting and the coronavirus has accelerated a lot of changes that would have happened anyway. And as change management practitioners or organizational design practitioners, it's important for us to be part of this, to be excited by this, to not be afraid of what is coming, because it's all about change, is it not? So if you want to get hold of me, you can get hold of me on my email. That's Colleen@vuseleladavis.com. It's there. I also have a website, vuselela.davis.com. Vuselela, very strange word. What does it mean? It is a Southern African word from languages, from isiZulu or Xhosa. And what it is it means renewal, regrowth, rebirth. And that is what happens in the coaching process. The leader gets a renewal, a rebirth of their purpose and what they want to be and where they are going. And that is what I help facilitate. So thank you very much. I'm going to stop sharing now, and I'm going to unmute you, or we can just look at, how do I unmute everybody? There you go. I'm allowing you to unmute yourselves if you have a question. I see from, is it Amrish? You're curious about whether the perspective of change management is different or not when you look at executive coaching versus coaching at all levels. So I think one of the biggest differences with executive coaching is an executive knows his goals. An executive knows what has to happen. Often there is a barrier that is stopping them from doing it. And it's often a human barrier of self-belief, a human barrier of a belief that they've had before. Whereas lower down with people who are still starting their leadership, starting their careers, they need more prompting of, where do I want to be? What do I need for that? And that's why I enjoy executive coaching, because it's more you co-create the space that allows an unblocking of the person. And my background is in philosophy of Gestalt coaching, which brings in a whole other exciting avenue, which I could talk for lots longer, but let's open it up. Anyone like to say anything or ask anything? Hi, Michelle.
Hi, Colleen. Firstly, that was just so riveting. And I'm a very nature and holistic person myself. So how I've been thinking about it, and you've put it in perfect words, that humans are not cogs. And the whole organization is organic, and it should be seen that way. And it was, what was it you said? Sorry.
That's fine.
And it was looking at the neuroscience and how we can ever think that the human being and this team member is cog. It's how to try and change the mindset of those leaders, particularly the toxic ones, to actually realize their team members are actually their greatest source of energy, power, and to be able to develop that. How can we, or can we not, change the mindset of a toxic leader who is this kind of gatekeeper? How do you do that?
So I would say, Michelle, that if the person is narcissistic with a personality disorder, it's not going to change. However, a lot of the times it comes from more of that imposter syndrome. It's about the fear of not just change, but letting go, a fear of loss of control. Often people at that level have so much pressure. You've got to get all these outcomes. Plus, you've got to make sure that your staff are okay. Plus, you've got to do this. And as a human being, if we don't know what's happening in their lives, and that's why it's important to have that coaching part. I'm not talking counseling. I'm not talking psychological thing. I'm talking about the support of, right, people are wanting to leave your department. Let's talk about that. Why are they wanting to leave your department? What do you think you come? And sometimes it's just, I'm coming across that way. I had for example, when I was still early on in my career, I had a manager call me in or a leader. No, she wasn't a leader. And she started screaming at me. And she told me that because I had a degree, I looked down on other people. And I realized it was because she felt bad. She didn't have a degree. So I hope that answers your question.
It does. Thank you, Colleen.
Pleasure. Anyone else? Yeah, hi, Jamie. Are you on mute, Jamie?
Sorry.
Oh, there you go.
Even though I've done this lots of times, I still do the same mistake.
Yeah.
You know how it goes. You mentioned that a good way to do is to help leaders all along the line. I mean, from really low leaders to up with coaching. But what do you think about teaching those leaders to coach on their own? I mean, to start with executives being able to coach others and to be able to get involved in their lives and actually learn what is it that it's blocking the leaders down. Or, I mean, wouldn't that be more effective?
Well, you know what, is it Jamie? Sorry. How do you pronounce your name?
Jaime.
Jaime, sorry. Yeah, I realized.
No worries.
Jaime, because of the expense of executive coaching, that is exactly what organizations are doing and what they think is right. The problem with it is if the leader, the person who is not self-aware, they are not, executive coaching is a process and you learn as you go along, and you don't want executive coaches down the line all the time. You're wanting the organization as a living system to become self-aware and move forward. That would work long term, but those people would have to have the capacity and the ability. Not all of your CEOs, not all of your managers, not all of your leaders, not all of your HR have that capacity of being able to coach correctly. They can listen, they can be empathetic, they can do coaching on a minor level, but to get into that self-awareness, because it also comes down to trust. If you are the person who's telling me I need to get this output now, and it's the end of year, and now suddenly you're saying, okay, let's now talk nicely. I'm still in that cortisol level. When I see you, I'm not going to trust what you say. I'm going to give you what you want to hear, but I'm not really going to become self-developed. And I think that is why, as you go down the organization, the levels, it is not as effective. Also, CEOs don't have time, if you really think about it.
Can I add something to that? Because I think back in 2008, I'll just share our story. We tried to introduce coaching, and it was like we were way ahead of the curve because the organization didn't really even understand it. What we ended up doing was reframing coaching to be coach-like, because we recognized this issue that you're talking about, Colleen. It was really hard for, or even talk about HR practitioners. They're in our organization would have been seen as the labor relation people. And so how can we ask people to, on one hand, do disciplinary, and then on the other, shift and say, okay, we're going to coach? It's a really tough thing because of how the employee receives them. So I'm just reinforcing your point. We ended up doing a blend of coach-like. How do you be more coach-like as a leader versus how do you be a coach? Because we kind of stuck to the true definition of coaching from the ICF, and not.
Yeah, thank you. And I think for Jaime, I think what would work perhaps is the strategic coaching. You can't coach everybody, but you can bring in who are the key players and who are the gatekeepers, and work around that as well. But Sandra, thank you. Thanks so much.
But just one quick last thing. Wouldn't that be kind of a good goal to look forward to have that kind of organization that, I mean, in order to really get to be an innovative and learning organization, the only way is that people trust their boss, and it's not the CEO, it's the one that they work with every day, right? Wouldn't that be kind of the goal to look forward? Maybe not in the short term, but with.
Yeah, I think it comes back to conversational intelligence.
Yeah,
it comes back to trust. If I don't want to know, okay, so this is a big difference in Europe and Africa. I've never been to Europe, so I'm not sure. But from what I have gathered, people will come in and say, I need this done. It's not personal, it's we need this done. In Africa, you have to come in and you have to say, hello, Jaime, how are you? How's your family? How are things going? Are you all right? I see that your grandmother was sick. Is she okay now? By the way, I need this. Yeah. So it's here in Africa, if you don't do it that way, you are very rude. And people will cut you off and deliberately not work with you because of that. So it comes back to being community, relationship, building trust and truth. And one of the wonderful things about, if I can leave something with you guys, that I learned from Judith Glaser's work is, if I trust that this is your truth, I will listen to you. It doesn't have to be my truth. But if I can trust that this is your truth, it then stops all that internal dialogue that is happening. And that's the problem with the coaching of just your upline coaching or being coach-like, is as the person's talking, they're going, okay, now what must I say? All right, how do I frame this as a question? I actually don't like where this is going, so how do I cut this off? And so the person knows, through the empathetic neurons and the network, they know the person doesn't really trust them. They know what's happening. So they just go, yeah, whatever. Yeah, no problem. Yes?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much.
No problem. So we've gone over time, but I'm happy to answer any other questions or any other thoughts if there's anyone else who'd like to ask anything.
Can you repeat your email again? Sorry.
Sure, let me share it again, if you'd like.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, thanks.
It's Colleen at vuseleladavis.com. You got that? Okay. Well, thank you to everyone. Unless there's somebody who's got a burning thought or a burning question, I'm really happy to hear you. If that's it, well, thank you so much. I really appreciated sharing my thoughts and enjoyed chatting to you. And I hope that you were able to get some hope and excitement for the 21st century, and think about using interdisciplinary professionals like executive coaches within the change management process. So thank you very much. I'm going to be the last one to leave because I'm just letting people write in the chat. So I'm not going to press the leave. So if you want to leave, please feel free. Hi, Sandra, sure.
Hi, I just had a quick question, Colleen, while everyone is leaving. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. Are you Sonia or Sonia?
It's Sanja.
Sanja, there you go.
Yes. Just to Jamie's point, as I was thinking about what he was saying and teaching individuals and organizations how to become more coach-like, as Sandra said, just really just thinking about the challenges and maybe the way that we teach people in organizations to be coach-like, and maybe we should consider our approach. Is our approach being too mechanical to teach them how to be coach-like? Maybe we need to think about how we begin to institutionalize these ways of thinking, so to speak, thinking like a coach, and being more organic about it, making it more of a way of being as opposed to a way of doing things.
Yeah,
as far as being self-aware like that.
Yeah, I agree with you. There's actually a body of work in Australia and South Africa called the Unwritten Ground Rules. You can look that up. And you're right about making it organic. It's what we do here. What is it that we do? Because we're in change management. You put out all this framework and you hope that people will attach. It's like putting a shipwreck in the sea and hoping coral will attach to it, and you have a Great Barrier Reef wherever, but it doesn't always work that way. And one of the problems is the unwritten ground rules. If the unwritten ground rules are here, it doesn't matter what I do. Here, no one listens to me. Then you can't organically get that coaching going. But if part of your strategy is creating those, and it's not just values, it's more, it's embedding in that culture, the subculture, because that's where this happens. And I think often, remember with organizations, they suddenly go, oh, this is costing too much. How can we cut cost? Okay, well, let's let everybody coach each other. Yay. And it's not in the strategy. If you can get the unwritten ground rule of here, we listen to each other. Here, we help each other. Here, we care for each other. Here, you're not alone. Coaching will naturally happen. Yeah?
Yeah, I agree. That's what I think is the best approach. Thank you.
A pleasure. Pleasure. Right. Anyone else? Sandra, you wanted to ask something?
Well, actually, I wanted to connect with you. So I don't know if I just do that offline or.
Well, we can do that.
Yeah.
Would you like to link in with me and then we can share our details?
Okay, awesome.
That would be wonderful. Thank you.
Thanks.
Right, well, if that is everybody, thank you once again. It was a real privilege to be able to share this with you, and I'm going to close the meeting. And I wish you a great afternoon. For me, it's afternoon. For some of you, it's late evening, and others, it's early morning. But it was great to chat.